You ever hear of a man who couldn't scream, not from fear, not from trauma, but because he came into this world without a tongue? Born into a place where bloodlines looped around themselves like rope tightening into a noose. His hands, 7 fingers total, 3 on the left, 4 on the right, were curled inwards, shriveled, completely useless. No real name was ever given to him, only a nickname muttered like a warning. The Craw. And if you're hearing this, then chances are, you've already stepped somewhere you shouldn't have. Because stories like this don't sit on library shelves, they pass mouth to mouth, family to broken family, in corners of the country so forgotten even the censors quit trying. Nestled in the deep hills of eastern Tennessee, far beyond telephone wires or any road worth trusting, stood a house, though to say it was built feels wrong. It looked more like it had been coughed up by the ground itself. It was there, in 1942, that the Craw was born. A home of rotting wood, filled with relatives who didn't seem to keep track of who was kin and who wasn't. Some whisper his mother was also his sister. Others say she wasn't quite human, just the last piece of a mind left in a family drowning in its own decay. No doctor ever laid eyes on him. The town never knew he existed. But the holler did. And it listened. They say he made sounds anyway, wet, throat-deep noises like an animal mimicking language. And when people said he didn't have a tongue, they meant it literally. Not torn out. Not missing. Just, never there. A flat slab of pink meat where speech was never meant to grow. Fingers like waterlogged twigs. But what unsettled the old women most wasn't how he looked, it was the way the forest hushed when he passed by. They say he outlived them all. Longer than he should have. Long enough to watch his bloodline wither or vanish completely. No one taught him shame, but he wore it like a spine full of lead. And listen, this wasn't some horror tale pieced together for thrills. He was real. And the more you learn, the more it becomes clear he never should have existed. They say the house was built by his grandfather, using nothing but rusted nails and raw hands. Not out of pride, but out of fear. Every window made small. Every doorway low enough to force a man to bow. The whole house was more cage than shelter, built not to keep people in, but something else out. Or maybe it was the other way around. The Craw was born into silence, but he wasn't born alone. There were others. 3 uncles, 2 aunts, and a mother who seemed to age twice as fast as she should have. No birth records. No school papers. Just a family feeding on one another's memories until no one knew where one person ended and another began. Neighbors, if you could even call them that, sometimes heard noises from the hills. Heavy, guttural thumps like something large dragging itself just beyond the trees. One boy hunting raccoons swore he found bones spiraled in a perfect circle. Goat bones, folks thought. But one had a gold filling still lodged in the molar. No goat wears gold. It was in this nest of confusion that the Craw became something else. He never spoke, but he watched. From shadows, from behind trees. Children who wandered too close came back pale, whispering of a man with no eyes, not blind, just empty, sockets sunken inward like they'd never been used. But that's the thing, no one saw the same thing. Some said his mouth stretched wide across his face like torn paper. Others said he didn't have one at all. Probably hallucinations. But every story ended the same. I felt like I was being remembered. In 1967, a sheriff tried to investigate. Drove up the hill with 2 deputies and more bravado than bullets. What came back was the cruiser. Engine still running. No blood. No struggle. Just a set of footprints into the woods and none coming back. The official story? They fled. But the sheriff's wife swore he left his wallet behind. Something he never did. That's the problem with stories like these. They warp. They tear. But if you sit still long enough, the truth finds a way back. After that, people stopped calling him the Craw like a nickname. It became something else. A title. Like it was a role passed down in secret. Like he hadn't just been born twisted, but chosen to be that way. By the 70s, the house had sunken into itself. But he remained. People walking near the edge of the property would catch a glimpse, a shape, still, humanish, sitting among debris. No roof, no walls. Just the outline of a man. Not moving. Not blinking. but watching. Rumors followed, naturally. That he fed on raw meat. That he bred with something from the woods. That he was punishment in skin. The local preacher called him a demon. But no one had proof. Just fear. The quiet kind, the kind that makes you pray in the dark even if you've never believed in anything. A girl, 17, decided to prove it was all nonsense. Took a Polaroid, climbed the hill in daylight. Her boyfriend waited below. She never came back. A week later, they found the camera. One picture had developed. Mostly trees. But in the corner, barely visible, something crouched low behind a beam. Pale. Not quite human. Fingers long. Wrong. The police buried the photo, but copies leaked. Became a local dare: find the photo, stare long enough, and see if it stared back. Some said the image moved. Shifted. The figure got closer. Trick of the light, probably. But a few swore it bled when touched. Families left. Land sold for pennies. Roads vanished under weeds. By the 80s, that stretch of county didn't exist on official maps. Still, hunters talked. Hikers claimed to hear sounds like wet paper tearing. Not voice. Not animal. Something between. Because the Craw didn't die. He never left. He just waited. In 1992, a construction crew came through by accident. A mix-up in permits. Planned to build a cell tower. 3 men quit within 48 hours. One was found days later barefoot on the highway, hands full of dirt, fingernails gone. Never spoke again. The project was scrapped. Official story? Budget cuts. Unofficial? No one would talk. One man scrawled something on his trailer wall in grease pencil before disappearing. He doesn't eat. He remembers. That same year, a journalist named Aaron Marley tried to dig deeper. Interviewed locals. Found the photo. Even climbed the hill. Alone. Her last tape was recovered from the glove box of her car, which burned from the inside. The engine. Fine. No crash. Just fire. Experts said spontaneous combustion. But on the tape, you can hear it, her voice trembling, wind wailing, and under it all, something scratching. Not claws. Bone on bark. Then, wet breathing. No words. Just presence. The tape ends with Aaron whispering. His mouth is open, but there's nothing inside. Her name vanished. Photos deleted. Her family stopped speaking about her altogether. Because that's what the Craw does. He doesn't just take lives, he removes them. Memory, language, history, they unravel around him like rope soaked in acid. And if you're still watching, that means you're already braver than most. Tell us in the comments, what would you have done if this was your bloodline? Because if you dig far enough, your family tree might end in dirt best left undisturbed. Some say he was the last. The final fold in a bloodline that had turned so far inward it birthed something unrecognizable. But not everyone agrees. There's a story, told once and never again. From a nurse in a long-term care home, 3 counties over. In 2004, 2 silent men brought in a patient. No name. No records. The order, just keep him comfortable. Small man. Crooked. Fingers curled like dead worms. No tongue. No teeth. No chords to speak with. Yet he moved with purpose, not randomness. As if each motion carried ancestral weight. Every night at 3:17, he'd turn his head toward the window. Same time, every night. Until one night, a patient in the next room died. 3:17 exactly. He'd trace spirals on the walls. Always spirals. They'd be scrubbed off in the morning, only to reappear deeper. Larger. By week 3, the paint bubbled. One stormy night, the nurse sat with him. And she swore he was in her head. Memories she hadn't touched in decades flooded in shame, fear, grief. He just breathed through the empty place where a tongue should be. She asked, "What are you?" He tapped the window. 3 times. Outside was a tree, struck and split by lightning. By morning, he was gone. No paperwork. No trace. Spirals.